here to discuss how ASU is innovating in ways that are unimaginable to some. There's some amazing work being done here in Arizona that helps accelerate opportunities for all of us. And I'm really proud to introduce Dean of the ASU Fulton Schools of Engineering, Dr. Kyle Squires, who's helping lead the way. And joining Dean Squires are the co-founders of local innovative materials startup Swiftcoat, Zach Holman and Peter Firth. And last but not least, joining us all the way from Taiwan in the middle of the night is Dr. Qiang Fu of TSMC, the world's largest semiconductor foundry. And again, we're very appreciative that you are breaking ground in Phoenix this year. Thank you for joining all of us today. And as a reminder to our audience, if you have questions during the panel discussion, please enter them in the QA. And if you don't hear your question being answered, please know that we will contact you with an answer. Dean Squires, take it away.
Well, thanks, Mia. Thanks very much to the panel for gathering today, for all of you for attending. This really is important. So we're pleased to be gathering this group together to talk about the New Economy Initiative, and in particular, the Science and Technology Centers that are a key piece. And I do want to make clear, as you're also hearing, you heard it from John and Mia, and it's apparent in the videos, the New Economy Initiative, it's not nice to have. We hope it works out. It would be great if it comes to pass. There's a sense of urgency. This is vital. It's vital to accelerating growth and sparking the kinds of transformations to complete those transformations if we're serious about driving the kinds of outcomes important to our communities so they thrive, so they create the kinds of opportunities where workforce and companies that are here, the companies that will come to Arizona, and TSMC is a great example of a recent, relocation to Arizona, and the companies that are created, will we create an environment where they can succeed and be sustained? And not just succeed, will they stay? So I'll come back to this point at the end of the panel, but the point I want to make is this. We need to make these investments today. If we don't do that, we will be left behind. Other regions within the Southwest, they've been doing this and they're moving. We know the basic strategy of what we're proposing works. It's working elsewhere. What's unique about the New Economy Initiative investment request of the state, it's unique to our region, our place, the kinds of strengths that we have here, and the foundations that we built. So what we want is that spark, that catalyzing investment, accelerate the launch of the initiatives that you're hearing about today and that we'll speak to in the panel. So the New Economy Initiative is indeed about building, guess what? The new economy. What does that mean? High wage jobs, structures and platforms that continuously train an upskill workforce. COVID has been wildly disruptive. It's reminded us lifelong learning, continuous training will be vital. The New Economy Initiatives and Science and Tech Centers will allow that. They'll bridge the gap between research, discovery, and practice. That spurs innovation, that spurs critical outputs, that leads to business creation. And again, you saw great examples in the video. So that all sounds great, right? It sounds nice. Everybody wants those things, but what's the structure? Okay, so one of the key elements of that structure are the Science and Technology Centers you're hearing about. And again, of course, we welcome questions and we can continue to follow up. The panelists that you're about to hear from, they represent key areas that are integral to the success of the STCs, or they in some ways embody successful outcomes of the Science and Tech Center. So Dr. Qiang Fu, again, it's terrific to have him here from Taiwan, and we'll get to him in just a moment. Dr. Fu represents a key industry partner, TSMC, and again, we are thrilled to welcome them to the Valley. We want to further spur TSMC's success, along with many other industry partners in many other sectors. By bringing those companies into these centers, they will help pull ideas from the bench to practice, translate that research. They'll help conceptualize the next big research breakthroughs that will identify industries of the future, working alongside our faculty. And they'll be a partner in providing that training ground for our students and existing workforce. So you're also going to hear from one of our Fulton Schools faculty, Professor Zach Holman. Again, Mia just introduced him. His research takes place in areas important to some of the sectors that we're targeting by these Science and Tech Centers. And Zach is in fact leading the design of one of them. And then finally, the remaining panelists that we're happy to get to today is one of our Fulton Schools graduate, Peter Firth. He's come to our programs, so he not only represents that highly skilled workforce that we simply need to produce more of, if the Valley and if our region is to be successful, but he's an entrepreneur. He can speak to the small business startup creation and how STCs can quicken their success and what it takes to create more of these, okay, through the success story that is SwiftCoat, their company. So with that, I'd like to start with Dr. Fu. First question. So TSMC is moving to the Valley again, very excited. What attracted TSMC here, and how important is continuous innovation and access to talent to TSMC to your success moving forward?
Thank you, Dr. Squires. It's an honor to be here. I think TSMC has made it clear in the past that in order to be successful at building and operating an advanced technology fab in the US, we need both investment climate and talented workforce. The proximity to many of our customers and partners who are located in the US helps too. We are a technology-driven company, so innovation is our core strength. It really is our bread and butter. So in addition, our innovation empowers our customers to unleash theirs. So it's very important that we continue innovating. I think we can all agree that talent is the first step in innovation. Access to that talent pool is critical for us to stay competitive.
So Dr. Fu, so your sound isn't great. Let's move to the next question and see if we can help repair that a little bit. Can you also speak to how large is the investment that TSMC is going to make in the Valley, and how many jobs do you foresee as being created?
This information is publicly available. TSMC's total spending on this project, including capital expenditure, will be approximately $12 billion from 2021 to 2029. It will create over 1,600 high-tech professional jobs directly. Of course, we don't build and run a fab alone. We work with many of our customers, suppliers and partners to support the fab operation. So there will be thousands of more indirect jobs created in the semiconductor ecosystem.
So I think that's very important. That is not only the actual building of the fab that TSMC is going to create, the jobs that will be directly created, but the supply chains impacted, the neighboring industries impacted. That's again one of the great outcomes that we see and that we'll be looking forward to partner on. Let me ask this: how do you as a company look at innovation cycles and processes with partners?
As I mentioned before, TSMC is a technology-driven company. So among the top-ranked companies in the US patent grants with over 2,800 patents in 2020 alone. So innovation is part of our DNA. So in addition to our internal research and development, we have fostered close collaborations with academic community, like university research centers, joint development program with individual PIs, and SRC, that's Semiconductor Research Corporation. So for us, innovation is a process of collaboration, not just during the past funding and the R&D phase.
So you spoke about innovation, you spoke about how vital that is to your industry sector. Research is important. That is, what role does research play in your business sector?
That's a good question. So most of you probably already knew the pandemic has greatly accelerated digital transformation. So within TSMC, we're also undergoing a transformation, which will require a much closer collaboration between industry and the university centers like STC. With a strong connection with the university and its vast resource of faculty and students, we're not only tackling today's most challenging problems in technology, but also building a healthy talent pipeline from college education to postgraduate research, which can eventually lead to either academic or industry careers for those students. So I'm really excited to say that ASU alumni talent pool is already an important source for us. Since we started the recruitment back in November, more than 10% of the new hires are from ASU. They'll come to Taiwan for 18 months of training, and they will bring the latest and greatest technology back to Arizona to help start our fab.
So that's awesome. That is huge impacts possible. We look forward to that partnership through faculty, facilities, research, and so forth. I'd like to move on to the next, bring in Professor Holman. So Zach, how do you think about partnerships with industry in research?
First of all, thanks for the invitation to participate on the panel here. As a faculty member in electrical engineering at ASU, I love partnering with industry, and as the director of faculty entrepreneurship within the Fulton Schools of Engineering at ASU, I love to promote partnerships with industry. And the reason is that in my experience, it provides clear value to both halves of the partnership. You see, universities need access to important problems in order to do meaningful research. There's a large sphere out there of interesting problems. There's a smaller subset of those that are important, the ones where if you solve them, it matters. It matters to our economy. It matters to people's lives. And industry has key insight often into what those important problems are. So industry brings those to the university and partnerships. Now, meanwhile, the university brings its innovation. And we heard a lot about ASU's innovation in particular in the video. And together, these arrive at new solutions, right? So the innovation might be specific to the area in which the company has expertise, but it might also be in completely complementary areas. And that's one unique thing about a university. It usually has a much broader scope than any company, any individual company. And so there could be social science and technology and electrical engineering and biology that are brought to bear on various problems. Maybe one last point on this is that in addition to partnerships between the university and large companies like TSMC, Arizona universities are really good at partnering with startup companies. And we've seen a big surge in growth in Arizona of startups in the last decade or so. And I know ASU is promoting its role in a lot of these because oftentimes the university is partnering with startups in research where the startup actually came out of the university. It was formed there through the entrepreneurship programs that we have, and we'll hear more about that.
So one of those outcomes, you're right, you talk about, entrepreneurial outputs that can be a startup. One of those is SwiftCode, and we're going to hear more from Peter about that in a moment. But speaking of startups, what is the origin story of SwiftCode?
Yeah, so SwiftCode is a company that came out of my lab at ASU from research that Peter Firth and I did. It was formed in 2016. It's a company, it's a material science company. And we'll hear more about its products shortly. Although it was formed in 2016, the origin starts back in 2013 with investment in the form of grant funding that through research led to the creation of new intellectual property. The protection of that intellectual property with ASU's Technology Transfer Office, and equally critical to the advancement of the technology up to the time in which SwiftCode was founded was the advancement of people. So Peter, who we'll hear from shortly, came back to the university from industry to get a master's degree, took a class with me, decided to join my research group as a master's student. We so enjoyed working together, and he was so passionate about the work that he was doing that he stayed on for a PhD and decided to take an entrepreneurship class that had a pitch at the end of it, and he won that pitch. And that was actually that pitch competition. That was the paycheck that resulted, the prize check was what led to the formation of SwiftCode. And since then, SwiftCode has grown into a larger company. We'll hear more about it, and it's off and running on its own with its own funding, its own customers, its own employees. But really, we required this research, the intellectual property, and then the people. Those are the foundations for the company.
So it is really, it's been fascinating for me to watch the evolution of SwiftCode and all the other startups that have come out of the Fulton Schools and in fact across ASU. It's timely to be talking about this because just this week, in the news, in the United States, the country's creating fewer startups now than at any time since the 1970s. And I'm talking pre-pandemic. What do you think limits the creation of more small businesses like SwiftCode?
Yeah, I read that as well, and I was both amazed and not surprised. There's some key ingredients, and we need more of them, and we certainly need more of them in Arizona. And those key ingredients are people. That was mentioned by Dr. Fu. We already talked about Peter a little bit. He'll talk more about himself shortly. We need trained people who have a deep expertise in the problems that we're trying to solve, but also have an entrepreneurial mindset, which is a key focus at Arizona universities. In addition to people, we need facilities. So SwiftCode is an interesting case because it's a high, hard technology company, right? It's not software or a new app. And to go find the place that we needed with the tools that we needed in order to start the company, it didn't really exist. It was really hard to find a place in Arizona. We scoured the valley. And if we were to build one, it would have been tens of millions of dollars that we required. And finally, we found out that ASU actually had a facility, a unique facility, and that it's leasing to companies that partner with the university, which was a great model for SwiftCode. So in addition to people, we need the right facilities, we need money, we need funding always for those startup companies, and we have I would say a small but growing VC and investment community in startups at least in the Phoenix area, and of course we need mentorship. So those are the things that we need more of to produce more SwiftCodes.
So a startup, that's, say, one outcome, if you will, from a science and tech center. As I mentioned, right, you're leading the design of one of the STCs. What's the vision for the STC that you have in mind? And what do you think it will do to help the Valley?
Great. So the Science and Technology Center that I'm focusing on is about energy, materials, and devices. Now, what does that mean? That means developing new solar technology that's going to secure our energy future. That means developing and scaling the batteries that we need for energy storage for electric vehicles. And that means power electronics, the smart sensors and devices behind, let's say, a smart utility grid. So those are the focuses technologically, but really what the STC is about is catalyzing through research and technology translation the growth of the new economy that we've been talking about in the state of Arizona through partnership with both large companies and small companies. And we're already starting to pilot this at ASU. We have great success in our initial pilot. We'll hear from Peter momentarily as one of those early successes. And what we need is money to do this on a larger scale.
Awesome. So let's transition to Peter. So Peter, you've been an undergraduate at ASU in the chemical engineering program, graduate student in electrical engineering, in between working in the semiconductor industry at both small companies like Qiang Technology and larger corporations like onsemi. So now you're running a company based on your graduate research. So can you tell us about what has changed over that time frame that I just sort of summarized, and why you felt now was the right time to start your venture?
Yeah, so I've been in the ASU ecosystem for almost 15 years. I've gotten to experience firsthand the growth and the change that the university itself has experienced. And I think that one of the most impactful of these changes has been the university's embrace of entrepreneurship. All the way back in 2006, when I was an undergrad, the culture, the curriculum, the opportunities that were available to students were very much geared towards placing graduates in jobs at large companies. The dream that I had, the dreams that my friends had, were landing a role at a place like Schlumberger or Chevron or Intel. None of us really even considered working at a startup. And we certainly didn't consider forming our own because we didn't really know that was an opportunity that was available to us. At that time, there hadn't really been a standout success that we could model after. Faculty that had that type of experience were really few and far between. And looking back, I didn't really have the skills necessary to be successful in a startup environment. At some point between when I finished undergrad and came back for graduate school, people like Dr. Squires realized that the university was producing a lot of interesting and valuable technology that was collecting dust on the shelf. And they were producing a lot of exceptional and capable graduates that were being stuffed away in cubicles. And so they had started to enact a vision where entrepreneurship wasn't just something that was reserved for the more eccentric students in the MBA program, but a very prominent component of the engineering curriculum and culture. The embodiment of that vision was when I was approached about the idea of turning my research into a company, and I said, well, I'm an engineer, I don't know anything about business. The response was, well, we'll teach you. When I said, I'm a terrible public speaker, they said, we'll help you make you a great one. I don't know any investors, we'll introduce you. I don't have any customers, we'll help you find them. And the university absolutely did all of those things. Within a year, my company became one of the most awarded student startups in the country, taking in over $200,000 in pitch competition winnings and placing fourth out of 750 competitors at the largest student startup competition in the country. The next year, we raised our first round of venture capital. The next year, we received $2.5 million in federal research grants. And today, we employ a full-time staff of 6 engineers and have joint development agreements and projects with some of the largest manufacturing companies in the country.
Incredible. What's your vision for SwiftCode? What's next?
Yeah, SwiftCode operates in the field of nanotechnology, where over the last 50 years, there have been close to 1 million published papers, 200,000 granted patents, and billions of dollars in research. And all of that money and all of that effort has produced less than 500 actual products. Our company is based on a manufacturing technology that aims to bridge the gap between what can be done in a lab and what can be done at a commercial scale. So our vision isn't 500, but tens of thousands of new products in the healthcare and energy and building materials sectors that utilize nanomaterials, all of which are enabled by our technology. Our first product is a self-cleaning coating for glass, which could be used for windows in your home, keeping them looking pristine, or in solar modules, reducing the buildup of dirt, keeping them operating at high efficiencies year-round.
So what would be, say, the one thing or the one or two things? How do we accelerate the creation of the next Swift coats? I say plural. That is, how do we make this go faster? What can we do? What do you need?
Yeah, in my 15 years in the ASU ecosystem, I've met a lot of people like me. I've seen a lot of cool technologies like SwiftCode. I think the only thing that's keeping the same level of success that we've had from being replicated hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times is expanded and streamlined access to that same infrastructure SwiftCode has gotten access to. It's connecting more research and more researchers to corporate partners and investors earlier on in the development process. It's making it easier for a new company to lease an old lab being used as a storage room. And it's generating IP, more relevance to industry, and making it easier to license that IP.
So, well, that's incredible. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Zach. And thanks, Qiang. Really interesting. And to everybody listening, basically, you've just had described to you what comes out of an STC, why, where it can focus on, what do we need more of? The power of partnership from TSMC, from Zach, research impacts, industry partnership, outcomes that can be highly entrepreneurial, and from Peter, just the value of creating a small business and how we accelerate that innovation for more startups that are so vital to the ecosystem. So what I wanted to say sort of in passing as I move this back to Mia is we've gotten to this point by working really hard, maximizing all that we do, being very creative, very innovative in terms of how we engage in the university, engage in the community, and it's been terrific. So what have we done? We've built the prototype. We've proven it. Now we have to scale. We have to scale up. And that gets back to, guess what? The catalyzing investment that is a state request to be able to do that. And believe me, industry partners around the world are watching. Can we bring more to Arizona? Can we start more small businesses? Can we improve our communities along the way? Question is very basic. Are we going to make the right investments? We should. I've just described for you, courtesy of the panel, what is the blueprint. So with that, Mia, back to you.
Great. Thank you so much. Just really curious, is there a plan B if this doesn't work? Do we have a plan B?
So we have to get plan A to work because I don't think plan B is very appealing. That is to not do this, we do one thing. Chris Camacho alluded to in the video, and he'll probably make the same remark at the end. We'll actually lose ground. And it's beginning to happen because, again, our regional peers, the Colorados, Utahs, Texas, and so forth, they're making these investments. The data is showing that economic growth within Arizona is lagging. That's what's happening. So by not doing anything, plan B means falling further behind. And that means, guess what? Low wage jobs, ultimately lower quality of life. That's not a future any of us want.